Welcome to Sacred Stories Podcast, a place to explore and discuss new and exciting books of consciousness. I am your host, Reverend Patricia Cagganello, and speaking with authors that have shared their wisdom and stories through their books is one of my favorite things to do. Today we are speaking with Kathleen Kanavos, my co-author for our new book, Chaos to Clarity, Sacred Stories of Transformational Change, which is a powerful book comprised of personal stories from 30 women and men from around the world who shared their experiences of profound pain and their journeys moving through the pain to emerge stronger and with insights to share. As co-authors, in addition to sharing our own personal stories, I share my insights on the spirituality of change in the book, and Kat shares her insights on the psychology of change. Now, Kathleen Kanavos is accredited in psychopathology and special education. She taught psychology at USF, Fort Myers branch, taught the severely emotionally handicapped for 10 years, and was special education department head for 2 years before retiring. Kat is also an international author, lecturer, and keynote speaker who promotes patient advocacy and connecting with divine guidance through dreams for success in health, wealth, and relationships. And Kat and Duke University radiologist Dr. Larry Burke co-wrote the 2018 Nautilus Award-winning book, Dreams That Can Save Your Life. So welcome, Kat Kanavos, to Sacred Stories.
Oh, thank you, Patricia. Good to be here.
Absolutely. And I'm so excited because this is the first interview in an entire Chaos to Clarity series that Sacred Stories is launching. So every day for the next 3 weeks, we will be interviewing a different author that shared their story in Chaos to Clarity. And we're kicking off the series with you, Kat.
Oh, that's exciting.
Yeah, so co-creating our book, Chaos to Clarity, it's been quite the journey, wouldn't you say?
No, absolutely it is, especially when we first started out and we were reading the first stories and we were trying to talk to each other on the phone between sobs because the stories were so profound, and the depth of despair that the author was in, and then seeing how they work their way up through changes in their life to become a bright light was just astounding.
It's really incredible because when we decided to do this project together, what we said was we were asking for stories of significant change in people's lives and the hero or heroine's journey that they moved through. With no real expectation really of the type of stories we were going to be receiving and what they would be like. And they just blew our socks off.
Mm-hmm. They did, and we gave them very little guidance. We kind of wanted them to naturally fall into what we were looking for, and what we found was these stories moved beyond our expectations. We asked that it be in story form, that they not preach or teach, just lead by example through their stories, and they did. Their stories were incredible. And then we started seeing these special little gifts within the book. For instance, the stories were all connected through a universal voice of going from chaos to clarity. That's what they all did naturally. There was this universal connection going on. And then this butterfly effect was happening when we were sending the books out to be screened and sharing copies that weren't yet published with other people. They were coming back and saying that there was a universal voice within the book with kind of like this butterfly effect, where when they would read the story, it would affect them emotionally and cause them to do something different. And so almost like the flapping of the wings of a butterfly here in the United States might have some effect on the wind patterns in China. That's what was kind of happening with the stories. And then the last one was how this thread showed up. We weren't expecting it. We didn't even tell the authors that we wanted them to focus on this, but there was this beautiful golden thread that was a gift in the book, connecting every single story, every single person in the book that didn't even know each other. And that thread, that golden thread, was how when they were down in despair and weren't sure that they could go on, and some of the authors were talking about suicide, they decided one of the things that would help them get out of this funk and out of this chaos was to go out and find other people who needed help and help them up, offer a helping hand. And I know we just did a show with Dr. Bernie Siegel and Deborah Bouvet. Deborah Bouvet owns Dream Vision 7 Radio Network, and Dr. Bernie Siegel wrote the foreword to our book, and he's also a Dream Vision 7 Radio Network host. But Bernie was talking about how, you being a previous Marine, how one of the rules the Marines live by is not taking the easy way out and thinking in terms of a unit. But usually when a group of Marines think of each other within a unit, they know each other to a degree. Our authors had no idea who the other authors were, yet they pulled together as a unit. And like a Marine who's maybe shot in the leg and was wondering how they are going to crawl back to a place of safety, instead of crawling back to that safety, they reach behind them and grab another fallen Marine and drag them with them. That's what the authors in this book did. As depressed as they were, as chaotic as their life was, from whatever their chaos was, they went out seeking people that they could help. And by helping these other strangers, they helped themselves. And I was floored by that.
Yeah, we describe it as the shared heart and soul of our humanity. Mm-hmm. You know, I think that's really what this book speaks to. And as an interfaith minister myself, it's such a beautiful high consciousness that is just woven throughout the book. And it was so easy for me to be able to even share insights on what we call the spirituality of change in the book, and what that's about, and how that really has such a profound impact, not only in our lives, but on how we can help share our stories and move through significant change events in our own lives. And there's so much inspiration in this book. There's so much that's coming through these stories. But let's talk about a little bit about the types of stories, because some of them are profound and some of them are full of, depths of despair, things that you would not wish on, your worst enemy. But there's some that are a little on the funny side, and there's some that are, about finding love. So share with the audience what some of the stories are about, and maybe what one of your favorites is.
Oh, I'd love to. But before I do that, I just want to make a comment on your previous comment, because I think it was really incredible. And that is with the psychology of change. We always hear about how misery loves company, but what I saw happening in the book was healing loved company. And when somebody was on their healing journey, they went out seeking other people who are healing as well or needed healing, and gave them a helping hand. And I hadn't really seen that before. That opened my eyes to the psychology of change. And that is a very strong thread that runs through the book. But with the book, one of the stories that I loved so much, and I even said this on the previous show, was how your story about daring to bare your soul by dancing in front of total strangers was a profound healing. And being able to overcome your fear of bearing your soul in front of total strangers by getting on a dance floor and dancing for someone or in front of a group or by yourself or with someone was a real mindset change, which is also what the book is all about. And how, you went to this event and you see these beautiful little red dancing shoes lined up along the wall because everybody's in the auditorium barefoot, and you have on these size 10 flip-flops. And I think that your first on from the psychology of change, your first step was when you took those flip-flops off and put them right next to those precious little red shoes and walked into that auditorium. That was your catalyst for change.
Yeah, I remember that as if it was yesterday. It's interesting. Yeah. So I share four stories woven throughout, two stories specifically, and then a story in the spirituality of change, and then a story in the afterword, which I title "What's the Plan, Stan?" It's kind of the outro for the book. And it is my personal experiences. And they have a lot to do with reclaiming self-worth and self-love, which is my story and the experiences around those. But we have other stories. We have people overcoming addiction, women in an abusive relationship with a drug-addicted husband, a woman whose children were abducted by her ex-husband. We have people who have battled life-threatening illnesses, people that have lost children to death. We have women who have found love later in life in their 50s, 60s, 70s as well. We have, oh goodness, gosh, there's so much. We have people who went through downsizing, or as they call it now, right-sizing of their lives, and the emotional roller coaster that brought them on. Really something for everyone. So yes, moving through quite a bit of significant change and profound pain, but then others that are a little bit lighter and have a significant change through joy, right? Finding themselves through joy.
Absolutely. And in part 3, grief and loss, let the circle be unbroken, I write about how love never dies, because in that story, I'm touching on something that happens to a lot of baby boomers right now, which is they're losing their parents, which is a normal change, but it doesn't make it any less painful. It's normal for a parent to die before a child. But it doesn't matter if you as a child are 50, 60, or 70 years old. When your parent dies, that child within you is really struck a strong blow. And so I talk about how the moon was really full the night my mother died. And I'm wondering, all of the teachings that I had received from the church about, they go to a better place, they're in heaven. Suddenly when you're faced with that, you question it. And that's just normal. It's like, okay, was this just a bunch of words, blah, 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 blah? Or is my mom gone, just gone, that's it? I don't see her anymore. She's out of my life forever. And is there really life after death? And is there really somewhere else that she goes to? Is she okay? And I'm sitting out on the porch grieving, listening to the wind in the leaves, and I'm hearing voices, but I can't really pick them up. And then it's not until I actually go back into bed, climb back into bed beside my husband, that suddenly I feel arms around me and I can smell my mother. And it's at that point that I realize again that there is life after death, and that love never dies. And it is a way, it is a path to reconnect, the way that our loved ones can come back and let us know that they're okay if we can quiet our mind and quiet our hearts and just listen and breathe. And it felt like my mother was actually in bed with me, encircling me, kind of spooning with me the way we used to when I was a little girl and I had night terrors and would climb into bed with her. She would comfort me then when I was a child, and she was comforting me now as an adult after she passed.
It absolutely, you know, the story of losing a parent that you wrote and the other stories, again, we only asked for significant change. We didn't tell people what we wanted them to write about. And all of the stories came in, and they're within these 4 sections of the book that we would just naturally created when we divided the stories up. There's stories on love and relationships, stories on grief and loss, stories on what we call life journey and spiritual identity, and stories on what is the other one? There's grief and loss, and
well, there's love and relationships. That's part 1, and that's got 7 stories in it. And that was interesting. I think there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 stories. Each section ends up with 8 stories, Patricia, and we didn't plan that. And the second part is health and wellness.
Health and wellness.
Being I'll stand by you. So the first one with love and relationships, we named Crazy Little Thing Called Love. And in part 2, health and wellness being, we subtitled it, I'll stand by you. And the third part, grief and loss, we subtitled, Let the Circle Be Unbroken. And then the fourth part, life journey and identity, the long and winding road, which are amazing stories about, you know, hitting that wall in life. What are you going to do? And then working your way through it. Downsizing that you were talking about, a life-changing roller coaster ride is in there. And then the fifth part of the book is words of wisdom. And we just kind of came up with that at the last minute, remember? We were just sitting there talking and we said, you know, what if we asked all of our authors to give us like 5 or 6 lines of, if I knew then what I know now, how would that make a difference in the book? So we put that out to them. And oh my goodness, you know, we couldn't believe, like Tammy Knox, who wrote about a dream that saved her life. The dream gave her the name of the illness she was suffering from that the doctors kept missing because, you know, they're relying on modern technology, and sometimes modern technology doesn't get everything. And so she writes, if I knew then what I know now, I would have worried less, rejoiced more, and seen the beauty in all of creation. My moment-to-moment connection to the divine and creative divine would have led me instead of ego and my belief system. And this deep connection allows for self-acceptance and self-love. And you know, Patricia, in the book, there a lot of the healing that happened, I thought, was a result of self-love.
I think that is the ultimate journey. I think that is the ultimate experience. And I believe that is really what we're all returning to. So, Kat, thank you. I just want to say thank you. It has been a journey. It has been I believe, a life-changing journey, co-creating this book, Chaos to Clarity, Sacred Stories of Transformational Change, with you.
Oh, thank you. You know, it has been such great fun. And I was telling my husband the other night, every single day I learn something new, at least one thing, if not more. And that's exciting. I feel like I'm so much, you know, more learned after doing this book as a co-author with you, because, you know, I was so involved in the publishing of it. Things that I'd never known before, I now know.
Yeah, there's a lot. It's, but there's, even for the readers, I really encourage everyone. This book is so close to my heart. I mean, as a publisher, Sacred Stories Publishing, we publish some phenomenal books. And of course, I encourage you to check them all out, but I absolutely encourage you to pick up a copy of Chaos to Clarity, Sacred Stories of Transformational Change for yourself and for others, because it's that beautiful kind of book that you will find yourself in one or more of the stories. You will laugh. I guarantee you will laugh. I guarantee you will cry, and I guarantee you will close the book and walk away a little bit different. I think with a little bit more maybe depth of feeling, understanding, compassion. It's really just getting chills just even talking about it. It's really just one of those very special, special books.
It really is. And, I realized how special it was, Patricia, when the editors were sending us emails saying they were crying so hard during the book that some of the edits they made might have gone above and beyond what we wanted. I knew then we had something really special going on. So if you're listening to this show and you know someone in need, send them one of these books.
Yeah, if you just want to read some really great stories, I definitely pick up a copy. And again, Dr. Bernie Siegel, New York Times bestselling author, has written the foreword. Kat writes on the psychology of change. So I think that's what really sets this book apart. It's in addition to a really beautiful collection of some very powerful stories. Kat, your insights on the psychology of change and my insights on the spirituality of change with both of our backgrounds, I think really frames and anchors the book in a way that is very different than any other one out there.
Oh, I agree. And even the editors sent us an email about that. So they'd never seen that before, but they really liked it. So, yeah, I think we're on to something for the next books, because this is only the first in a whole series that we're planning to do.
Yeah. The journey has begun. So Kathleen O'Keefe Kanavos, co-author of our new book, Chaos to Clarity, Sacred Stories of Transformational Change. Thank you so much for being my guest today.
Thank you, Patricia. It's been a pleasure.
And thank you to our audience for listening. And please continue to listen for the next couple weeks, because each day we will have a short interview with an author from Chaos to Clarity, where they're going to not only talk about, their journey, they're going to share their story or parts of their story with you, and the most inspirational or challenging parts of their journey. So stay tuned, because there's some really great shows coming up. So I am your host, Reverend Patricia Cagganello. You've been listening to the Sacred Stories podcast. And until next time, as always, I encourage you to write your sacred story well.